Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And for those of you who like these type of videos, please remember to click like down below. It would be greatly appreciated. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. And I had a number of people say, Jason, have you seen the new Jeff Cavalier, aka Athlean-X video with Jesse talking about big chest mistakes for skinny guys? And people basically said, at least the first person who sent it to me, like, these guys don't have a chest. Why are they talking about it? And let's come over to that point. Doesn't mean that Jeff's wrong. Right? This is a perfect example of where someone who does, in this case, know what they're talking about, says, do what I say, not what I do. Because Jeff doesn't have a chest, but he admits that in the video. He admits that he doesn't have much chest. That's one of the things I've made before, kind of joking when these topics come up. But that doesn't mean that he's wrong as far as the biomechanics go. And that's what people need to remember, is that if a person does know what they're talking about, it would be very unwise for you to discredit them based upon appearance. Because it doesn't matter who says it. A biomechanics statement or a proven true medical or biological statement in the human body doesn't change based upon who's saying it. And that's something that people in this community forget frequently. Like if I tell you guys, yeah, man, a calorie deficit will burn body fat off of you. And then people say, but you're not ripped. How dare you tell us how to lose fat? You're a fat idiot or whatever, even though I have visible abs. But I'm, by bodybuilding standards, which I'm not involved in, I'm morbidly obese. And then people would say, so therefore you couldn't tell anybody how to lose weight, even though I lost 100 pounds of body fat, right? So obviously I know a little bit. I know how to lose 100 pounds of fat. I couldn't tell you how to lose more than 100, though. I don't have practical experience with that. But 100, I can get you there based on my practical experience. But, I mean, I could say that, yeah, a calorie deficit burns body fat. Probably increasing your protein with it would be a real good idea. And it doesn't matter who says it. That's generally a true statement. So we could say the same thing with Jeff. Jeff legitimately addressed in this video the biomechanical problems that you see with skinny guys. And I have clients who are skinny guys. I see the same stuff. Of the points that he made is that skinnier guys, again, because they have the longer range of motion, they have longer arms, it can be very, very difficult for them to really perform a lot of the chest presses correctly. It can be problematic for them, and they'll compensate in a lot of ways because of the difficulty of the leverages involved. It can be a problem. And he kind of pointed out, well, for the shorter, stockier guys, it's not as big of a deal. Now, of course, I'll have people chime in and say, but Jason, isn't that you? I'm actually taller than Jeff Cavalier. So, no, that's not me. He would be the shorter, skinnier guy, I guess. I don't know. He's not stocky. But I'm actually taller than him, and that's confirmed with measurements. So, before people go there, no, that doesn't count as me. I do have long arms. So even though I've got a big frame, I do understand the arm situation. I have a 6-foot wingspan. I've measured it. So I'm 6 foot tip to tip. So even I do understand the issues that my lankier clients have with bench pressing. Believe me, and I see it. I see it. I do have some guys who are up over 6 foot with real long arms. And bench is not always easy for those guys. So he's absolutely right with the lankier guys. They'll tend to roll the shoulders forward. And if you're trying to get your chest more involved, it is critical, absolutely critical, that you get those scapula back and down, right? And for people who struggle with chest development on any sort of press, and the guys say, oh, like the bench press doesn't seem to build my chest. And I don't care whether you're talking about a barbell or a dumbbell. It's the same movement pattern, right? So the guys who stand there and try to pretend that the barbell can't recruit as much chest as the dumbbell, it's the same movement pattern. Like if you really think that, you're really ignorant. It's the same movement. It's the same movement. So it has just as much potential. But the issue is they don't get those scapula back. And what they tend to do, they let the shoulders roll forward. And he did a good demonstration of that. But again, you're making it a front delt exercise by rolling the shoulders forward and letting the shoulders do the work. When the reality is you would actually be stronger in the long term and lift more weight if you learn to pull the scapula down and back. And they need to stay down. So when you bench press and you come up, you don't roll forward at the top. You stay back. Stay in scapular retraction. Shoulder blades down and back. And I would say something he didn't point out there of one of the big tips. Let's talk about the tips with that. This is one of the big advantages the barbell has over the dumbbell. You can set up easier the barbell into a position to where if you set the J hooks correctly and you set your body correctly, you can unrack it already down and back. In other words, when you set up correctly on the bench, you have the scapula down and back when you unrack. They're already down and back if you learn how to set up. And if you set up correctly, if you learn how to set up on the bench correctly, and you practice setting up in a way where you're already in position, you start in the correct scapular position from the time you unrack the weight till you do all your reps and until you rack it again. And that's one of the best things you can do. The other big thing is that he showed the arch. And a lot of people will have this misconception in their head that, well, arching cuts the range of motion, so therefore it's using less chest. Well, that's just simply not true. Yes, it can cut range of motion, but let's be realistic here. How many people are flexible enough to really cut their range of motion in half with an arch? It's almost non-existent. That's rare even in powerlifting. That's very, very rare to have that level of mobility in your spine and everything to be able to do that. You're cutting a couple inches out. Cutting a couple inches out. And for the skinny guy with a small rib cage and a small chest and long arms, are we really concerned that he's losing 3 inches of range of motion? I mean, realistically, he's got a really long range of motion. Like Jesse, perfect example, he has a long range of motion. Number two, the arching creates an angle that recruits more muscle fibers in the chest. Okay, so for the skinny guy, we might be putting them into a range of motion that's still almost excessively long because they don't have any meat. The bar's still coming really far down. But what we are doing is creating an angle to where we get a lot more chest involvement. So that angle like this instead of up like this, because we're down here, it actually engages more pectoral. We engage more pectoral on the press by arching. So if you're trying to really do all your presses and you're struggling with chest development, particularly the skinny guy, what you really need to focus on is learning how to arch and learning how to keep your scapula pulled down and back from the time you unrack a weight all the way until the time you rack it. You don't let them roll forward at the top. You lock it with the triceps. You don't lock it with the delts. You want the chest to work all the way through the entire rep. So practicing the best setups will help you with that also. So this is a case of one of those videos to where I might step back and we might joke and say, well, Jeff doesn't have a big chest and Jesse doesn't have a big chest. What's he talking about? This is clown world. But he knew what he was talking about. So we have to give credit for that. He does understand the anatomy of it. He does understand the biomechanics of it. And quite frankly, irrespective of what his own chest development is, the advice was actually sound. It was actually really good. And I'm saying that as someone who, when Jeff does get something wrong, I'm one of the few people who's brave enough to call him out on it. Most of the people in this community are scared to call out Jeff when he gets something wrong. They really are. They won't do it. I'm not afraid to. In this case, he's right. He got it right. He absolutely got it right. And the advice was sound and it was good and it was coming from a place of both education, right? A place of education and understanding biomechanics, as well as watching what lifters tend to get wrong in general in the weight room. So again, this is one of those two where there's nothing critical you could say about this video other than Jesse clearly hasn't been taking the advice and implementing it. I think we could probably say that. And Jesse's probably scared to lift heavy weight. And he always seems to be, from what I can tell. He doesn't lift heavy. But that was addressed in there also of Jeff saying, look, a lot of, again, skinnier guys are also afraid to bench heavy. And that's a big factor because at the end of the day, yes, we know volume. We know a lot of these things do contribute to hypertrophy. We know volume matters. We know it's an enormous factor. But mechanical tension is a factor too. And if you don't get enough tension on the pectorals, you're going to really struggle to get there with just purely volume. You really do need the combination, and that means you have to be able to press heavy. You really do. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.